G'day guys, Chronicles of Solid here and welcome back to viewer questions. I just wanted to say we've hit 15,000 subscribers, so that's absolutely amazing. In today's viewer questions, we've got how I've been finding the DRZ, is there a WR300R successor on the way, and what kind of tire pressures should you be riding in different scenarios for off-road? Those questions and plenty more straight after the intro, so let's get into it. So the first question is from Bush and Boots, and it's one I've been getting a hell of a lot recently. It's asking me how I'm finding the DRZ, have we gelled, and be honest. Well, to be honest, mate, no, we haven't quite gelled yet, and I'll get into that in a second, but he's still got more in his question. And he says, how many times have you looked for 6th gear? He's owned his for 2 years and he still finds himself doing it. Yeah, every ride I'm looking for 6th gear, but that isn't my major problem. I think that 6th gear search is just part of the hashtag DRZ life. So like you asked, I'll be honest about it, we haven't really gelled as yet. And I feel bad criticizing the DRZ as its main purpose is riding off-road, and I haven't been able to test it in that scenario. So that's a big reason why I've said we haven't gelled. It's just we haven't been able to build up that trust. I haven't got that faith in the DRZ yet that no matter what happens, it will start back up and get me home. So that's important with my motorcycle to give me that. The other side of it is it's very frustrating on the road with its gearing. I do have 1547 gearing now, but even with that, it still sucks out on the open road. I will admit that out on the open road, if someone sat a DRZ next to a WR300R and said we both have to ride an hour home, choose your bike, I would take the WR300R every time if we were doing highway. But it is fantastic around the streets with all that power. It is a lot of fun to just brap around. But I do worry that it might be a bit too much power for me as well, but time will tell. Perhaps I'll grow into it. It has been a long time since I've ridden off-road with any purpose. It's more just worries that I have that have kept me from gelling. I'm pretty sure that once I've got some riding under my belt, I can really tell what the bike's about. I'll be able to give an honest answer, and that's also why I've held off making a video. But so far I'm on the fence. We haven't completely gelled. I don't hate the bike, but I also don't love it. So time will tell. I hope that answers your question. So the next comment is from Tomcat, and he is stating Yamaha has something up their sleeve, raises eyebrow, either a 300, 350 or 400. Well, Tomcat, if you've got hard evidence to substantiate that comment, please contact me in the comment section below, as I and everyone else would love to know. Personally, I haven't heard a thing, nor have the people I know who work for Yamaha. They certainly haven't heard anything in the pipeline, and yes, they would let me know if they did hear something. So I don't think that Yamaha have officially announced anything about a WR300R successor, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't make great sense. I think Yamaha would be crazy not to do what Honda and Kawasaki have just done. Bore out the 250 and basically sell it as is with a few minor tweaks to modernize it. It would be perfect. We know that the Yamaha will handle a 290 and a 310cc big bore kit with absolutely no problems. You just have to look to the Athena kit to see that it can be done fairly reliably. I would think it would be crazy for Yamaha not to just make it a 290, maybe a 310. Hell, go crazy and make it a 350 if you can do it, and just tweak everything, make it look a bit more modern, fix that rebound in the suspension, job done. It's a fantastic bike already. So a couple of extra newton meters of torque and horsepower would be fantastic. It will also pass the Euro emission standards, and you can just keep on selling that bike. So I think that would be fantastic, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Comment down below if you would like to see a big bore 250R come back out onto the market to reclaim king of the lightweight small displacement dual sports. The next question is, why didn't I get a WR450F over the DRZ behind me? Well, that's pretty simple, mate. The WR450F is an enduro bike. I didn't want the servicing schedule, the purchasing cost, and the performance of the bike, every facet of it I can't really use because my skills aren't that great. So it would be wasted on me. There's no way I could put down the power of the 450F when I'm riding. I know that because I've ridden a 450F off-road before and I sucked so bad on it because my skills just aren't good enough. It scared me too much, if I'm being honest. I don't have the confidence and the skill set. So some of you might be confused why someone is asking me that question, but here in Australia, the WR450F comes licensed at the dealership to ride on the road. So they're a very popular bike here, pretty much the most popular off-road motorcycle Australia sells. So that's why people are a bit confused as to why I chose this over a WR450F. But like I said, terrible for road riding, short service intervals, and far more expensive new compared to the Z behind me. So those are the major reasons. So I've got a few worrying comments from people saying, oh my God, the CRF450L, has it been discontinued? Because I stated that in my last video when I was revealing this bike and talking about what I had looked at and why I didn't consider it. So yes, the CRF450L, or the now as it's known, the CRF450RL, has been discontinued. But here in Australia, I'm talking about the Australian market when I'm talking about purchasing a bike. So keep that in mind. Everywhere else, as far as I'm aware, continues to get the CRF450L, but it's now called the CRF450RL with a few little updates. So I was just stating how it is here in Australia. For whatever reason, it has been discontinued here, and you have asked for those reasons. So I'll try and go through them and plot them out because it is very specific Australian problems. So here in Australia, the enduro bikes, we get pretty much all of them plated straight out of the dealership so we can ride them on the road, including the CRF 450X, which preceded the 450L. So we were already used to an enduro bike from Honda that we could ride on the road. So when the 450L came out, the people that owned the X looked at the L, saw that it was heavier, slightly more tailored towards the road, and were asking themselves, why would I upgrade to that? It doesn't really make any sense. The second problem is the people that might have been tempted away from the Euro bikes didn't really bother because the price was the same. Here in Australia, the 450L was very expensive. You could pretty much get a 350 EXE from KTM for the same price with a license plate as well. So arguably that's a much better enduro bike. So you've got to ask yourself, if you're in the shoes of someone that does a lot of enduro riding, what's the point of getting the 450L when it's the same price? It's heavier and slightly less capable at the tight single track kind of riding that enduro riders find themselves doing. The third problem was the dual sporters. Now, people like me with a WR300R, a 250L, or maybe even the DRZ400 behind me, we're all looking at the 450L with hope and sparkles in our eyes until we found out that one, the servicing was roughly every 2,000 kilometers, while higher than an enduro, still very low for a dual sport. So that kept a lot of people away, as well as the price. You were asking enduro money for what was basically an enduro bike with some dual sport tendency. So it kept the dual sport market away, it kept the Honda guys away, and it kept the enduro guys away. It did kind of fizzle out here and not do as well as Honda expected. It still sold bikes, and I know some people that really stand by them. New Routes absolutely loves his 450L, and I probably would have bought one myself if it had been available compared to the DRZ, if I'm being honest. That is pretty much the intricate reasons as why it failed here in Australia. It is disappointing. Perhaps they'll see their errors, bring it back with a better price with the RL name. Who knows, we'll see what happens. So the next question is from Bilal, and he's saying, hey Solid, how you doing mate? Keen to hear your opinion. The CRF300 Rally is priced at $9,800 here in Sydney. Is it worth it or slightly overpriced? The retail for the 250 Rally was 8.6, and towards the end you could pick up one for 7.5. I'm torn now. What do I do? Laugh out loud. Well, the 7.5 price is kind of deceptive, as they're really just trying to get them off the floor before they get stuck with them with the 300 Rally coming in. So I would discard that. The 300 Rally will probably fluctuate in price as well as you come to end of financial sales in the future and all that. So look at the initial sales. So you're looking at roughly $1,000 premium for the new Rally. If you ask me honestly, I think yes, it is worth it. Almost $10,000 is quite expensive, but you got to remember a WR300R here in Australia is 9.5, 9.6, depending on the dealership you go to. So what you're getting is worth paying that extra $1,000 over the 250 Rally, in my opinion. You're getting extra suspension travel, but most importantly, you're getting extra power. My main criticism of the 250 Rally for Australian roads was it just didn't make enough power for the highway. It really did feel weighed down by its weight. The 250L had just enough power for its power to weight ratio. The 300 Rally tipped the scales for me in it being a little too slow to be worth having or owning the bike. So the 300 I think is worth its weight in gold and will make it a real hard case for owning the bike. The other updated features like the nice new dash, the bigger tank, all those kind of things also appeal to me. So I would be willing to pay that. You've also got to look at inflation over the years since the 250 Rally came out. So bikes have progressively got more expensive. It's not just the Honda. So yes, in a nutshell, I do think it's worth it. Perhaps hold out if you can wait and see if the price comes down, or whether that's just one dealership chain charging a little bit extra than they should. Go around shop, see if you can speak to a couple of dealerships, get them competing on price a bit. I know there's not too much wiggle room with bikes that are this cheap, but you never know, it's worth giving a go. But yes, in a nutshell, I think it is worth the price hike over the 250 in the long run. So the next comment is from Tango India Mike, and I'm going to paraphrase this one as it's quite long, but he's saying, every time I decide this is the bike for me, the naysayers come out and ruin it. He's talking about the Royal Enfield. So the Royal Enfield isn't a bad bike, mate. Some people are going to bash it for quality, some people are going to bash it because it's not high performance, and others are just going to bash it because it's made in India. While I think there are compromises to this bike, I think the reasons that people criticize it are obviously subjective. It does have some compromises, but you got to think about where those people are coming from. They're not you, mate. So think about what you need out of a bike and what you want out of a bike. Go and test ride it, see if it suits you and whether it works for you, because 9 times out of 10, it's better to get the bike that suits your riding style and you feel comfortable on, and then dealing with the compromises and fixing them along the road, rather than getting a bike that everyone tells you is fantastic, but you hop on and you just do not have any confidence and it makes you a worse rider. So I think it's better to trust your gut, as long as you educate yourself. I want to point that out. As long as you're aware of the compromises, the faults, the problems that come up, as long as you purchase the bike and you're aware of what you're going to face, it takes away most of the worry. Even a DRZ, as long as it's been out and the Japanese quality, it's still got plenty of problems that I've got to fix on this that have never been addressed. So as long as you are educated on what you're buying and it's the bike that fits you, you want it, and it encourages you to ride better and you feel confident on it, then I say screw the naysayers, just go and do what you want, mate. Don't worry about them. Wayne is asking, on your next question show, can you elaborate more on air pressure benefits when off-road? He also wants to know about different ways of inflating your tires, and he's also wanting to know about impact shorts. So yes, the impact shorts have a high density foam on the hips. I've got Fox impact shorts, so they have high density foam that goes down the side of the legs the full length, as well as the tailbone, and then some padded foam in the crutch and butt area, which is good for a fall as well, but it also makes it comfortable sitting on a crappy seat like the DRZ behind me. As for tire pressures, it's a subjective thing, mate, and yes, you've got the basic premise right. Lowering the pressures increases the contact with the surface you're riding on, so the more contact surface area you have, the more grip you have. So that's the basic fundamentals of lowering your pressures. So when I'm on the road, I have about 30 psi in my tires. Some people will have lower, some people will have higher. That's just what I've found and is my comfort zone, and also helps the knobby tires last a little bit longer. When I hit the dirt, just general dirt riding, I have 15 psi front and rear. That's my comfort zone. Again, some people have higher, some people have lower, but that's what I've found is working for me. When I hit very soft sand, I use 10 psi, and that's what I found is my comfort zone. Again, I am running rim locks though, so keep that in mind. If you're running super low pressures, get yourself a pair of rim locks, as they help fix the tire to the rim with those super low pressures, so you don't fling a wheel off the rim when you're riding in the sand. As for inflating, you've got 3 major options really. One is the old hand pump. A bicycle shop will have plenty of the little mini hand pumps. I'll splice in a little bit of footage for you. The great thing about this is it's lightweight, it doesn't take up much space, but the problem is you got to pump away like a 13-year-old that's just discovered their first porno mag, so that can get very tiring. If you've had a long day in the saddle, it's very hot and you got to pump away furiously, it can get very old very fast. But again, lightweight, small form factor, and the lowest case of failing out of the 3 options in my opinion. The second option is a mini air compressor. The one I'm showing you here is a Tomcat mini air compressor. It's absolutely fantastic. It's got a bigger form factor and it weighs more than the pump, so that's the downsides there. But the benefits are that it inflates a tire much faster. It's also a lot easier. You just connect it to your battery or your USB or 12-volt charger and job done. It also is much better when you're changing a tire. It's easier to seat the bead with an air compressor than a hand pump, so an air compressor will make that a lot easier when you're out on a ride. I generally take the air compressor on me on multi-day trips. I don't generally take it on day trips, as a lot of the other guys I ride with tend to have an air compressor on them anyway, so there's no sense in doubling up. So again, that's also a fantastic option. The third option is the CO2 canisters. Now, I would highlight that these are really only effective, in my opinion, for enduro bikes and MX bikes, those guys that are trailering their bikes to the dirt, as you would need an awful lot of them to get an adventure bike or a dual sport up to road pressures. So these are fairly easy. They've got the smallest form factor, the least amount of effort. It can be quite effective if you got a trailer and you don't need high pressures in your tires. So hope that all helps, mate, and enjoy the trails. So the last comment is from someone whose name I'm going to completely butcher, so I'm really sorry in advance, mate. The final comment is from Kudup Singh, Hong Kong. Sorry if I butchered your name, mate. Why spoke wheels? Alloy is tubeless and easy to fix punctures. Well, yes, that's true. Alloy wheels are easier to fix a flat because you can just put in a plug, but that isn't exclusive to alloy wheels. There are plenty of tubular spoke wheels on most big adventure bikes, so that's not something that only alloy wheels have. I will give you that alloy wheels are much better on the road. You don't get as much flex in them and you get more control when you're really pushing a bike on the road, but that's where the functionality of an alloy wheel stops, and that's why you do not see an alloy wheel on an enduro bike or a dual sport or an MX bike. Anything that's made for proper off-road, you never see alloy wheels because they do not have the flex in them to really deal with tough, hard terrain. They tend to crack and break, and if you do that, it's game over. Unlike with a steel spoke wheel, it can take that abuse, and if it does bend, in some cases you can get yourself home regardless. The other problem you have with alloy wheels is if you do want to ride off-road, generally speaking, you want to lower your pressures to increase your grip, but you can't do that so much with an alloy wheel because if you reduce your pressures too much, then you risk doing that cracking and breaking. So you can see how that is a circle of failure for serious riding off-road. So that's why you see people really wanting spoke wheels when they're looking at their lightweight adventure bikes, dual sports, that kind of thing. It's not such an advantage to have when you're doing serious off-road. When you're just looking for light dirt roads and you want something that's going to handle the twisties great and be very stable on the road, then yeah, an alloy wheel with a 1917 combo can be a great thing. But generally speaking, for the more off-road orientated stuff, a spoke wheel is always the way to go. So that's it for this month's viewer questions. If you've got some for the next month, chuck them down in the comment section below. If I don't respond to them all, just know that I do read every comment on the channel. Sometimes it just gets so overwhelming that I can't answer every one of them. So just know that I do read every one of them, even if I don't respond. So chuck them down below regardless, and I will try and bring them up in the next video. Also, don't forget to share this with your mates, smash that like button and let YouTube know this is the kind of video you want to see. I've also got that PayPal function now where you can just click and donate whatever you like. So thanks to all the people who have been using that. It's been absolutely amazing. And lastly, don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you later, guys.